What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Speaking Sessions podcast. We've got a returning guest here, Dean Mercado, and he was on about a year ago. He's made huge transformations in his life. More specifically, he became a transplant like me to the Greenville, South Carolina area. But he is a business and marketing coach. And today we're going to dive into what small businesses need to do to run more like big businesses, because he's been in the industry for quite a while helping businesses out. And so I want to be able to pick his brain while he's down here, even though we're not quite in person right now. But I want to pick your brain here today, Dean. But welcome again to the show.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here with you, Philip. This should be awesome, as usual. So very cool.
Yeah, it's always just fun and energetic for us to be able to talk and everything. And I'm starting to hear just a slight bit of a southern accent there. It seems like you've slowed down your talk just a little bit. The accent hasn't came through quite, but the talking slower has came in. As you know, New York, we're going. Yeah.
Well, I haven't gotten wound up yet. As soon as, as the years come by, it takes a little more to wind me up. But as soon as I do, believe me, it starts to go. But,
there we go. There we go. So how long you been in business for? What, about 3 decades now? 2 or 3 decades? Or how long has
this company,
it been?
Online Marketing Muscle, it's 20 years.
Okay.
I did other things prior to that, but online marketing, we just hit our 20-year mark. 20 years.
Yeah.
Holy crap, right?
Yeah, that is crazy.
It's insane.
Yeah,
It really is insane.
I would love for you to kind of like talk about, because I feel like when I talk with newer entrepreneurs and everything, it seems like that 3 to 5 year mark is where things really start to change. So I'd love to get like this high level overview of like what that journey kind of looked like and some of those milestones of where it felt like, oh, I got a little break. Oh man, things are finally starting to work as you've been through this 20-year process within the marketing muscle business.
Sure. I would equate what we've gone through as an equivalent growth pattern to a human being, where a human's life cycle goes from being born to an infant, to a toddler, to a teenager, to an adult. And then they start going down the other side, right? Where you start getting into our older years, right? Where the wisdom comes on, but everything else starts to cause problems. So with a business, it's the same thing. A business is born, a business becomes an infant, goes through those infancy stages where it's learning. Those formidable years are starting to happen, turns into the toddler, and you go through your crazy toddler years where they're running around like lunatics, and as parents, we're chasing after them all over the place, right? And then they become those young kids, and then they become teenagers, and then that brings its own host of problems. And then we get into adulthood, and that brings its own host of problems. And this is what happens in business. No matter where we are along this path, along this journey, each leg of the journey brings its own set of challenges, problems, and it's all good. It's just a matter of how you frame it for yourself, right?
Yeah.
I've learned to come at it with a healthy framework. I didn't always, because let's face it, for me, with Online Marketing Muscle, I came out of big corporate America. I saw how big corporations work. I worked for some of the best companies on the planet for at least a dozen years, and as we probably mentioned in previous conversations, my first couple of companies didn't do so well. But as we always say, fail forward fast, right? Yeah. So we failed forward fast. We learned a bunch of things, but I still didn't learn everything I needed to learn. There were many lessons that were still meant to happen for me in early Online Marketing Muscle days. So I continued to get my rear end kicked all over the place because I didn't know what I didn't know. So one of the reasons I became a coach is because, number one, I was being asked, how did you get past that? How did you deal with that? How did you fix that? How did you get through this? And the other side of it was, if I could just help a few others not go through the same pain I did, as I went from my beautiful 6-figure salary in corporate America to zero, literally to zero.
Oof.
And with no revenue in sight. Part of that was ego driven because I was like, I made so much money for the company I was working for. How hard could this thing be?
Yeah.
It's like when you don't know what you don't know, that ignorance, you're thinking ignorance is bliss. It is not. Ignorance is ignorance. And anybody, if they're smart, they're getting help as soon as possible. Get a coach. Every single buddy in business needs to have a coach. No doubt about it. And it's not just because I coach. It's because things didn't start changing for me until I started getting coaching. It's the way it is. Shortcut the process. Doesn't have to be as painful as it may appear. So this life cycle we're on, it's important to understand where you are in that journey. It's important to cut yourself slack. It's important to understand that what got you here won't get you there. And what gets you there won't get you here, right? As you're traveling and you're traversing this path. So you do need to be in a constant growth mode. As the CEO of your company, there is no fall asleep at the wheel thing anymore. There's no set it and forget it. It's about figuring out what has to happen for the next leg of the journey to be what we need it to be, right? So, and a lot of that stems from, what do you want? Simple as that. There is nothing wrong with being a solopreneur, being a one-person operation. I did it for a long time. There's nothing wrong with it. It's choosing what you want from your life, right? Some people call it a lifestyle business. You can if you want. Whatever you want to call it is fine. The great part is when you are an entrepreneur, it's your business. You can call it whatever you want, and it really doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. And that was a big part of my growth. As I went from that, born to infant to toddler to small child, I cared a lot what everybody thought because I came out of big corporate America and I was a big shot. I was a big deal. I was running big teams around the world. I was doing some pretty phenomenal stuff. I thought I was hot shit. Let's just put it that way. There's ego getting in the way, but I didn't know what I didn't know. And again, it took maturity and it took several beatdowns for me to get that, to understand that, it really doesn't matter what anybody thinks. Stop trying to impress everybody else and do what you need to do for your family. As I ended up getting married and then, I started Online Marketing Muscle right before, all of this started happening. My wife was like a new wife coming in, we didn't have kids yet. And we were like, you know what? Before we have the kids, let's give this thing a shot, and she was cool with that. So we did it and we gave it a shot. We got it after a couple of years. We got it to a point where, okay, this is good. If God willing, we'll have our kids now, and God was willing. So we had our kids pretty quickly, but again, it came down to understanding what we wanted for ourselves and our life. You and I, before we got on this, into this podcast today, we were just joking around about me being a transplant, just like you, down to South Carolina now. And that's all part of that master plan of what do I want? What do I want for my family? Well, I wanted something better than what we were experiencing in New York. New York is it's gotten out of control. There's no nice way of saying it. I spent 55 years in New York. I love New York. I always will. But the New York that I grew up in, not what it's bastardized going into now. I saw a glimmer of hope down here in South Carolina. We made the bold move. But just like any good entrepreneur, good leader, you're able to evaluate a situation quickly and you can decide quickly. I'm able to look at things. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, let's do it. We have nothing to lose, by coming down here. Matter of fact, it opened up new gates for us, meeting new people, new opportunities. The business took a nice uptick as soon as we came down here. Does it have anything to do with the location? Who knows? It has more to do with what was going on in here between my ears and how I felt about things and who I wanted to become in this next leg of my journey. As my company is technically an adult at this point, right? 20 years. We're in adulthood. So a lot comes with that responsibility. Right now, last time we spoke, my mission was more on trying to save entrepreneurs in New York. We were trying to do as much as we can, and we did a lot before we left. This next leg of our journey has more to do with building team. Now it's about adding people to this equation. Let's build this thing up so it's bigger than me or any one person. Let's create something worth selling. Something that somebody in 10 years is going to look and say, I'll buy that company. What do you want for it? Oh, that's a steal. Give it to me. So this next leg of our journey is really heavily focused on not only who's on board the bus, but where the bus is going and what systems are needed in this leg of our journey, because the systems that got us here did not get us here. We had to rebuild. So we're looking at not only version 1, version 2, we're on version 3 right now is the way we look at our business.
Yeah.
This is version 3 of our journey.
Yeah. And the systems and the individual that got you to where you're at now will not get you to where you want to be.
Correct. So, that's absolutely correct.
We have to develop in both of those. And so I would like to go back, but before I go back, kind of that early entrepreneur, that early phase and everything, I want to say that that's one thing I admire about you is that you are comfortable with your business where it's at. And then we've talked about this offline, that you decided to not grow the business near as much as you could have because you decided you wanted to homeschool your kids. Yeah. And it's a huge thing that, we don't really hear of men typically homeschooling kids, all that stuff like that. Usually it's the wife, but you decide to do that and have a business and still keep that up and everything, which is that whole solopreneur thing. And oftentimes as people trying to start a business, so we think, oh man, it's such a shame. And it gets bashed on a lot too, that, oh, well, and I get where you can't call it a business if it's only you, it's just a job. Right. I get that a little bit, but a lot of times we're bashing people and it takes time to get there. Some businesses just take off quicker than others. Some people are able to dedicate more time. Maybe they have the support of a spouse, or they have the savings or income to be able to funnel that, like you say, going and investing in coaching and stuff like that. And so we all come from these different backgrounds, but I like that you always go, especially in the conversations we've had, you always come to me and we have a conversation around where I'm at, rather than, oh, here's what I think you should be, or you're kind of looking from above on me and telling me, oh, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Right. Where I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of other coaches, and that's what it seems like. It seems like they have the secret sauce, if you will, and I need to almost grovel to them in order to get that. And I think it's such a ineffective way as a coach. But when it comes to like those first couple of years, I'm curious. I know you kind of kept it a little bit more solopreneur than trying to really grow and get a team and all the stuff in that. But I can imagine, you mentioned a couple of years when you and your wife first got married, you were trying to grow this business. What was going on inside your mind, and how did you continue to move forward to try and grow this business and make it something before having the kids? Because I could also see that side where your wife's like, hey, I'm getting close to 35 and getting close to geriatrics or whatever you would call that. But how did you deal with all of that as a new business owner?
It was painful. I won't lie. A big part of it, Philip, was the fact that I had to unlearn a lot of the programming that I had received through my first 30 something years of my life. I'm well educated as far as the traditional school system goes. I have a master's degree, and I jokingly say it, but it's not really funny. I spent the last 30 years unlearning a lot of the bad programming that was really baked into me. That life has to go a certain way, and if it doesn't, you're not good enough. So whether it's college, job, family, everybody has their own path. And far be it for any of us to judge any other human being and instill our will and instill our thoughts, our stinking thinking on that other person. Who am I to say, Philip, you're not where you're supposed to be. You suck. Really? Well, you suck too, Dean. What does that get us? Really? And some of that just came through years and years of iteration doing this. And, to this point, I've logged somewhere between 10 and 20,000 hours coaching people in the last 20 years. It's probably closer to 20,000. That's an excessive amount of coaching. That means I got to hang around with smart people like you every day, all day for 20 years. Boy, am I grateful for that. I never see myself as better than anyone I'm coaching. We're all learning from each other. We're all on a journey somewhere, right? The journey we're meant to travel, but it is your journey. Far be it from me to tell you what your journey is supposed to be. I'd love to see everybody become wildly successful and rich. But at the end of the day, Philip, it's about how you define successful. It's about how you define rich. I might look at you and say, you know what? And I hope this doesn't, I hope this is okay to say, but I know you got 2 girls now, not including your wife, you 2 children. Yeah. So one might say, you're very rich. You're very wealthy. You've been blessed. And you have been.
Yeah.
There's no greater gift you're going to get on this planet. I don't care what you do with your business. At the end of the day, why are you doing it? And that's what you have to think through, in my opinion. It's about when people come, they come to their and find their own truth of what that means to them, what they truly want, what matters to them. Everything else is trivial. I'm at the point in my life where I really don't give a crap what anybody thinks about me anymore. I really don't. Good. Knock yourself out. You judge all you want. It's only one person, or one entity that I'm concerned with how they feel about me in that way, and I plan to be here for a while longer, hanging out. But, and my family, I care about what they think. And I'm trying to create the best life for my 2 kids. Fortunately, since we moved down to Greenville area, we're able to, my kids are back in the public school. They couldn't be in the public school up north. The school system is completely failed. I'm not saying it's perfect down here, but it's way better than it was up there. So much so that I feel like I've instilled enough values in my kids, as they're not little anymore. They're now, this year, they'll be 17 and 15. So they've got enough of a strong value system to be able to release them into the world, which is not perfect and has a lot of evil in it. It just does, but there's also a lot of great in it and a lot of good in it. And I've taught them to look for it. Don't always focus on the negative, the bad. So all this applies to what we're talking about. It's all about how you do anything is how you do everything. How you conduct your life is how you're going to conduct your business. How you do anything is how you do everything. I didn't make that up. One of my mentors taught that to me many years ago, and I agree with it because I think that's the way it is. We all have patterns. I've become an expert as a coach of seeing people's patterns, identifying their patterns, bringing those patterns to light so that they can recognize that they even have those patterns, and then figuring out what they want to do about them, if anything. Right? And not judging them on what their choice is. It's okay either way. So, it's heavy, man. I know it sounds heavy. It's a lot, but it's like, who defines wealth? Who defines success? Who gets to define that for you? So as an entrepreneur, it's one of the first things we have to visit and revisit and understand. I said revisit too. Understand that depending on where we are on this life cycle, that how we define success and how we define wealth is going to change. It will change. And some of you may be listening to this saying, get out of here, you're full of it. No, I'm telling you, man, I've been through enough and through enough decades to understand that what I want today and how I define success today at 56 now is not the way I did at 26 or 36 or 46, right? It's changed a lot. And part of that is because I'm a constant I'm under constant education. I'm always learning. So if you're starting a business and you're looking to get into those next generation, those next iterations of the business, the next legs, you have to understand, and this is for everybody out there, your business will only grow to the degree that you do. Now, I'm sure all of you heard that phrase before, but I'm asking you not to just hear it, but listen to it. Really sink your teeth into it. Understand that it is reality, and allow yourself to look deeper at things that maybe you didn't look at before. You take them at face value because I've always heard that, but what the hell does that really mean? It's like me saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. What does that really mean? It means that I could look at somebody and I could follow them through their day for an hour, and I could tell you what the rest of their day is going to look like, what the rest of their life probably looks like. I've learned to read people really well. I've learned to read myself really well. And that was a critical part of my growth for myself, was to understand what makes me tick. What's important to me? What's important to the ones that love me, that truly love me and want to be around me and want the best for me, like my wife and 2 kids. Why I do what I do. It's all driven by my kids. This is why I hustle. It's why Online Marketing Muscle does what it does, as well as my coaching company, why we do what we do. It's why we're here doing this right now, because we know that it's about more than us. You're put on this planet for a reason. It's part of your job to figure out what that reason is and to try different things on and understand that that reason can change. You got to allow yourself that luxury, but it is all about living and living fully and playing full out while you have the chance, Yeah. So for every business owner out there, understand where you are on this life cycle. Understand that what got you here won't get you there. What got you here won't get you there. Right? So no matter where you are on that path, you've got to understand what has to happen. If you're truly looking to build a business, as Zig Ziglar used to say many, many years ago, famous sales guy and just wonderful, wonderful person to listen to, very motivational. You don't grow a business, you grow people. And the people grow the business. Right? And I bought into that this year. It took me all these years to get there. None of us are perfect, right? We all got to travel the path that's that we put ourselves in and that we're meant to travel. Whereas peers of mine might have got there 30 years before me. It doesn't matter. I should not be jealous that they got there 30. I don't care. Good for them. There's several areas of my life, I'm sure, that I got to first. And you know what? That doesn't matter either. I'm traveling my path.
Yeah. And that's something I've talked about with some friends as well. Like, would I like the business to be taking off a lot more than it is? Yes. But I also want to be a great husband and a great father. And I'm not saying you can't have both, but for me, I want to put more emphasis on that. And so sometimes that means tabling the business stuff. That means not putting in as many hours as maybe, I truly probably would like to as well, because I really enjoy it. I love helping people with speaking, but I realize that, what's the point of helping other people with something if I'm leaving my family behind, something that I claim to be this really important thing for me. And so you're right. Like, just because somebody's further along than us in whatever journey it is, business, life, whatever, doesn't mean that they're better than you.
That's right.
And it also doesn't mean that you're better than them.
Correct.
Y'all are just on different paths, like you said.
Correct.
I like that.
Right. Our human experience is meant to be a learning experience.
Yeah.
My own personal core values: to love, to create, to learn, in that order. That's what I value as a human being. My coaching business adopted those 3 core values. My other business, different story, has its own set of core values. Online Marketing Muscle has its own set of core values. But to love, create, and learn, because I understand that my journey here, the more love I can spread, the more I'm accomplishing things for humanity. When I coach, I'm sharing love. I come from a space of love, not judgment, right? I'm trying to add value to that other entrepreneur that may be going through some things that I already went through, or that other clients of mine have gone through. And I have that luxury of bringing that wisdom to somebody and helping them along their path, right? But it's all about playing in that non-judgmental zone. Everybody has their own path. You're meant to travel your own path. When you stay true to that, the best things in life, in my opinion, open up to you. Yeah. When you allow yourself to be bullied or trapped in what somebody else's definition of what your life journey is supposed to be, I feel for you, because it's going to be that much more painful for you to get where you want to go, right? Mm-hmm. And to be able to self-actualize, right, is the right word for it. You know, in my book, The Mind Stretch, this guy behind me, we use a phrase in there a lot called evolve to actualization. And that had everything to do with us evolving as a person, as a business professional, as a husband, in all your roles of life, until you actualize what you're supposed to be, till that becomes into reality for you. So we've got to keep evolving, keep growing. And the same goes with a business. But understand, your business will not grow until you do. The more you work on yourself, the more your business will follow right along. So if your business isn't where it's supposed to be, we have to do a check-in and say, what's going on? You know, what are you doing to better yourself? What are you doing to move yourself forward? You know, are you the bottleneck of your business? Right now, 100%, Philip, I am the bottleneck of online marketing muscle. I know it. I'm clear about it. I am the problem. If I release that bottle top and I allow that company to explode into what it can become, it will.
Yeah. I'm the same thing with the speaking sessions.
Yeah.
I'm the bottleneck. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing I think about, because it's hard when you say like we're limiting our business. I feel like sometimes that's a hard concept to think about. But just to give an analogy here, or I guess two analogies. One, when you're trying to build up people, the best thing to do is to give them purpose, is to give them a clear path forward, a mission, something to drive them. And I've heard Andy Frisella say this recently on one of his podcasts, where he talked about, if you got bricklayers and all you tell them is, hey, we need to build this wall, lay a bunch of bricks. Well, they may love laying bricks, but after a while, they're going to get tired of it, because all they're doing is just laying bricks. They're building this massive wall, and that's it. But if you tell them, hey, the reason why we're doing this is for a specific purpose, they're going to be more driven to do that, and probably even do a better job on top of that, be more careful. It's going to be so much better overall because you gave them that purpose.
That's right.
And so then the same thing with your business. When you have that purpose, when you continue to cultivate that purpose and that mission and repeat that over and over again, of why that mission or why that business is in existence in the first place, why you started it, it'll help you continue to grow. And I think that's really the big differentiator between a small business struggling and a small business succeeding, and even a large business, how it continues to grow, is there is a specific mission and purpose of why that business is running, versus when you're starting up, you're just thinking about trying to get to six figures, trying to get to 10K a month. You're just focused on money.
Yes.
And when you start focusing on money, purpose, everything changes.
That's right. And you're exactly right. And that's a hard lesson for a lot of people to swallow, but it is so spot on. I mean, I worked in big corporate America for a dozen years. I saw how they did things. I saw what their vision and mission were, what their purpose, what their core values were. And even though I learned it in my master's degree program, I didn't get it. I didn't understand it, because the corporations I worked for didn't do a proper job in helping me understand it and helping me understand how I fit into that. So even if you're a bricklayer, if you understand, let's say, for example, down here in South Carolina, we see a lot of churches. There's a lot of churches here in South Carolina. That's great, right? If I'm a religious man regardless of my religion that I believe in. And I'm a bricklayer. And I know that our company builds churches for people to worship. How awesome am I going to feel knowing that if I understand the benefits I receive from worship, and yet I get to go around now and build churches for other people to get that feeling too? Holy cow. That's amazing. So taking the time to tie it in for people, because not everything is so clear to everybody around you. If you're the entrepreneur, yeah, maybe you see it because you created it.
Yeah.
You know, the person who's working for you now, they didn't create it. They don't know where you're coming from with some of these ideas and thoughts. But if you bring them in to the conversation, now all of a sudden, game changer, right?
Yeah.
Game changer. So it is critically important to really help people understand how they fit into the purpose, the mission, how we expect them to conduct themselves and behave, in alignment with our core values. Critically important. Most small businesses do exactly what you said. You're spot on. They're too busy chasing the money because everyone tells them they need to be at 6 figures. And then everybody tells them they're going to need to be at 7 figures. And then everybody tells them they need to be at 8 figures. Where does that end?
Yeah.
Right? It ends when we finally get mature enough to say, you know what? I know what I want. And what I want may not be what they want from me or what they expect from me. It's what I choose. That's the power of being a human being. I get to choose, and I also get to live with the consequences of my choices. So it's also about not blaming everybody else for my lot in life, taking responsibility for what it is I've created, whether good or bad, right? Allow myself to fail forward and fail forward fast so I can move toward whatever it is I'm meant to move toward.
Yeah.
But I know we're going a little bit on a bit of a tangent here, but it is critical to growing anything. If you're thinking of that life cycle and you're understanding that you must evolve to actualization at every level, you're evolving. What are you doing today to grow yourself? What are you doing today to move the needle towards what it is you're saying you want in your business? Some people will call it goals. I don't care what you call it. Everybody's got a fancy way of doing everything. Get it done. The proof's in the pudding, as they say. At the end of the day, a lot of people do a lot of this. Very few people throw that into it.
Yeah.
Put the muscle
all
into
talk,
it.
no muscle.
That's right. And that's purposely why we named it Online Marketing Muscle 20 years ago. We were tired of all the bull crap we were hearing. And we said, you know what? We just need to get it done.
Yeah.
Let's help people get it done. So that there's no more excuses, no more complaints. They can't say, well, I don't have this or anything. No, we're laying it out for you, making it easy for you, So again, what needs to happen? Coming back to your original initial question and concept where you were talking about how do we go and become these big businesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or bigger businesses. If that's what we want, that's the first thing, was making sure it's really what you want. Because it does bring its own challenges. It does bring its own problems. You need to understand where you are in your life. And then from there, decide, does growing this thing right now make sense? For me, yeah, it's making a little bit of sense right now. Whereas 5 years ago, it didn't. I was very wrapped up in my homeschooling. I was very wrapped up in doing a lot of different things. I was a very hands-on dad. That's the way I wanted it. That was one of my stipulations to my wife, that I was not going to be an absentee dad working in corporate America. Yeah, I could bring home a lot of money, but it's not what I wanted. And that stems from my own upbringing. My dad, we had 5 boys in my family, five kids. And my dad worked a lot to put food on the table. I did not understand that when I was a kid. I made my dad very wrong. My dad's no longer with us. I made him very wrong for not making my baseball games. Why was he always showing up late? Why was he showing up dirty? Where My best friend's father's always there, all nice and clean and neat. Now today I look back and I'm like, well, I don't know what the guy did for a living. Maybe he was part of the mafia, the New York mafia back then. But, my dad, although he was a musician early on in his life, he was an electrician for the last 40. And he worked hard. And he would come home after work, working overtime. And then one of his buddies would show up and they'd go back out and go do side jobs. Why? Because he had 5 boys that needed to eat. And we ate a lot, and it's, we spoke about it later in life before my dad passed. And, I apologized for it, and we laughed about it. I didn't know what I didn't know. Right. So I take all of those learnings into what I do today and how I show up for my own kids and how I show up for my clients and how I show up for my friends and everybody around me. I try and become that beacon of light that can open up people's eyes a little bit, try and help, but also understanding boundaries, and that's where coaching, you should be doing this, Philip, you suck at this. And no, that's not where we need to go. It's about figuring out and everybody figuring out, what do you want? What does your journey look like? If this was to happen, what would that look like for you? How would that make you feel? And it sounds like fluffy questions, but a lot of that, why somebody listening to this now would think those are fluffy, because they're afraid. I'm calling you out. Those of you listening, because there's fear there. We don't want to go there. Trust me, I didn't either. But I couldn't evolve to actualization until I did go there. And I did understand a little bit more. And yeah, maybe this has to do with where I am in my life. I partied hard when I was in my 20s, 30s. Definitely. I could hang in there with the best of them. Am I proud of it? I could really give a shit about it now. Excuse my language. I'm not that part of my life anymore. I'm in a different stage. What I want today is different. I'm very involved with my kids still. I'm very involved with my business now. Now that my kids are back in the public school and they're having some fun right now, it's allowing me to put my focus on the things that maybe I was able to take my finger off for a little while and my foot off the gas a little bit. But now I can put it back on and say, okay, let's build this. Let's add this. Let's add that. Let's add this. And moving out of New York means our expenses went down. So sometimes your business model and where you're doing the business does matter, because our expenses in New York were insane. Couldn't operate. Too hard to make decisions because everything was too much of a financial issue. Whereas here, a little different. We can make smarter choices and we can invest. Right. So as you look at your business and as you look at the life cycle, understand that you're going to be upgrading your processes, your systems, your processes, and your procedures the whole way. And if you want to truly become the bigger business, you've got to create assets. That's what it's about. Right. Not creating a job for yourself, but creating assets that are worth something. It's not just hearing somebody say something like, yeah, build your business as if you're going to sell it. What does that mean? Right? Truly understand what that means. What that means is your business is worth something, right? To somebody else. My business now is worth something. Why? I built a machine. We've got several methodologies. Our clone the owner methodology, for one, is our big methodology. That's what people buy from us. And then we put that methodology into their business, turn the machine on, and woo, all of a sudden their business is tuned up. And they like that. It makes money. All of a sudden things start moving. Oh, that's how it's supposed to run. Yeah. It's a well-oiled machine, right? Clone the owner has a lot to do with the systems, the processes, and the procedures. That's a big part of it. It's not all of it, but it's a big part of it. Clone the owner is about leverage. And that's another big word that anybody looking to grow their business has to learn. How do you get leverage on your business? Right? You need to know how to leverage money better. You need to learn how to leverage people better. You need to learn how to leverage your systems better. When you could get leverage, right, then you start getting wealthy, financially wealthy, right? Not the wealth we were talking about earlier with having a great family. That part is more important, in my opinion. But if you want financial wealth in your business, you want to grow the thing from 0 to 6 figures and then from 6 to 7 and 7 to 8, remember, you've got to upgrade those pieces. You've got to build assets. And there's financial assets in your business just the same as there are intellectual assets. What intellectual property are you creating? Clone the Owner is a piece of intellectual property that Online Marketing Muscle owns. It's trademarked. So it's now worth something. Now, that's important because if we do sell, I said, build your business as if you were going to sell it. I didn't say you had to sell it. As if. So if we decide to sell Online Marketing Muscle, it's worth something to someone. A big business might come along, let's say $100 million a year business may come along and say, that Clone the Owner stuff is great. We want it. How much you want? That's how we create retirement packages here too, as entrepreneurs. You build your business so it's worth something. So when you sell it, now all of a sudden you have a nest egg that you could do whatever you want for the rest of your life. Right? So I'm a big fan of creating these kinds of machines, these kinds of intellectual property. We have numerous things like that in my business that we've created over the years. And this enables us to do what we do and do it very well and do it very fast. It takes a lot of the clutter away. So again, systemizing everything. That's going to get us the leverage we want. It's going to build the assets that we want. It's just like anything else in life, right? If you buy a home and you want to maximize the value of that home, what might you do to it, Philip? What might you do to that home?
Do some remodeling.
Yeah, you might do some remodeling, right? Most people, before they sell, they'll put a new kitchen in or they'll redo a bathroom. And that brings the value of the house up. That's what I'm talking about here. It's the same thing. Stop thinking about all these things going on in your world as if there's something different. They're not. It's all the same. How you do anything is how you do everything. We want to position the home so we can get the most value out of its sale. We want to position the business so we get the most value out of its sale. Right? Or we franchise it. Right? So, down the road, maybe we'll see, 100 different coaches out there, all under the Speaking Sessions brand as a franchise. What does that do for the Speaking Sessions brand? Well, it makes the brand a lot of money. It makes the brand very valuable if the coaches were highly vetted and properly onboarded. Now, all of a sudden, we've got a huge asset. So it is about also thinking beyond, to use Dan Sullivan, who's a master coach, written several books. If you haven't checked them out, people check them out. But a shout out to him in his book, like Who, Not How. It's about changing our mindset. Who can do this for me? Not how can I do it? And that's an entrepreneurial issue right there. We always think, well, I don't have any more time left in my day. How am I supposed to? No, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be asking the question, who can do this for me? Who can get it done?
And the thing with that too is, do I need to really know how to do that? I see a lot of entrepreneurs that do that too, where they don't necessarily want to do it, but they feel like they can't delegate that to somebody until they know how to do it themselves, so they can somehow track that they're doing it properly or doing it well.
Right.
You'll know pretty quickly if they're doing it well or not. You'll know pretty quickly if they're milking it or not.
Yeah.
But you have to let some of that go if you really want your business to grow. I mean, look at all the Fortune 500, Fortune 100, Fortune 10 companies. That CEO has no clue. The board members have no clue what goes on the day-to-day. But they don't need to know that.
That's right.
They've delegated that out. And now obviously when you're at a big corporation like that, it's no longer a personal company, if you will, like a small business, but that's what it takes. You have to
Right.
get rid of that portion of the emotion. But it's also the beautiful thing about small business is that you have the emotions there. You can have the purpose, the drive within the company, and have heart really at the end of the day and get people bought in to that purpose. And that is the superpower of a small business, is that
Brilliant.
purpose behind it all.
I hope all of you out there just heard that. Rewind that again and listen to it again. Philip, you're spot on. That's some great wisdom right there. You're absolutely right. And I hope everybody takes it to heart. And, think about some of this gold you're being handed here. What do you do with this stuff? I was once that consumer. I've read over 1,000 books. I don't say that to brag. I say that because I was doing it wrong in the beginning. I've been reading business type books and self-help books since I was in my teens. I'm 56 now. So yeah, could I have gobbled up 1,000 books? You bet. I was reading a book a week at least, through most of that time. So again, I say that not to impress you, but to help you understand that there's a right way of doing it and a wrong way of doing it. And it wasn't until I stopped doing that in that way, where I was just gobbling them up left and right without really implementing what I was gobbling up, without really using what I was supposedly learning. So therefore, I really didn't learn it.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't implementing it. And then I changed that. And I started actually applying what I was reading. Now, when I read a book, I really read a book. I implement. Out of every book, I expect to implement at least one thing. Otherwise, why did I read that book? So I choose what books I read very wisely now. I also do that because I'm very careful who I let step on my brain, who I let trample in my gold mine over here. Right? There's a lot of people out there with stinking thinking. And just because they wrote a book doesn't mean they know what they're talking about. There's, especially these days, people can throw a book up on Amazon tomorrow that they wrote with ChatGPT and they're best-selling author now, and they think they know what they're talking about. Couldn't be further from the truth. How do you get the ability to write a book? Repetition. Right? Philip, you by now, this is what, episode 190 something?
Yeah, we'll be over 200 by the time
So do you think you've earned the right to talk about what it's like to podcast? Yeah. I'd say. When we did our first session over a year ago, you were kind of just getting started. And I looked at the video, and what a difference. It's not even just what's behind you and the whole look and vibe that you're giving off. It's the vibe you're giving off. Your energy's different. You're coming way more from a space of confidence than I was able to pick up on back then. And that's not a knock on where you were back then. You were great back then. I'm curious to see where your journey is going to go from here. This is exciting to me. I look at this and I say, this kid's got potential, huge potential. Now it's a matter of, and I'm sorry for calling you a kid. It's just because
you're good. You're
a few
good.
years older. I'm curious to see where your journey takes you. I'm excited for you and your family because I understand what's possible. As my family, my kids are still kind of young, but they're not that young. They're, a good 12, 15 years older than yours. So I can see, you're probably going to travel some similar things that I traveled, and that's okay. That's all fun. Look at it as fun. And that's a great thing for you. What an opportunity you have in front of you. So for all of you out there, my point there was you get to where you want to go. You got to try things on, and you got to be willing to stick to it and put in the repetitions. You want to build muscle? You're not going to the gym one time and doing some bench presses one day and have all the muscle you want. It's not how it works. Bottom line is whatever's worth doing, do it great or don't do it. Figure out what that is for you. and go at it. Give it everything you got, but on your terms, not because somebody else planted that seed into you that this is who you're supposed to be. This is what you're supposed to have. You're sucking at what you're doing because you're underperforming. Who the hell are they to tell you that? At the end of the day, who do we have to answer to? Ourselves, our wife, okay. Our husband, our children, okay. Our God, okay. Whatever it is for any of you, right? I'm not judging. I know what it is for me, and that's good enough. So we want to grow this business, grow yourself. Understand there's a life cycle. Understand we have to evolve to actualization. Understand that it is going to take hard work, right? Understand that you got to be careful who you listen to. I was speaking at an event not that long ago, and I had several clients and potential clients there at the event. And they saw me speak and, did very well. But the end of the day, they were all coming to me and, I was thinking about going, the bottom line is my message to all of them was be careful who you're listening to here. Because a lot of these speakers, misery loves company. And a lot of people like to talk a big game, but they didn't do 200 podcasts. Right? So you can flex this. Mm-hmm. Most people can't.
Yeah.
They haven't earned that right. And if they do, more power to them. I'm not, whatever. I'm sure there's somebody out there that's meant to listen to that person. Right? But you are going to have certain people that are meant to listen to you. And this goes for everyone in the audience here, everyone listening. Everybody has a unique audience that's meant to listen to them, that's meant to work with them. You don't have to be the best. There's always going to be somebody who does it better, faster, cheaper than you. Always. Get over it. Get over it. Right? And that's how I looked at it early in my journey. Took me a little while to get there, but I was like, okay. I got called out a lot in the beginning when I started coaching. I remember one time in particular, I was doing a speaking event. I don't know if I told you this before, but I was doing a speaking event and I just finished my speech. And this woman who was in the audience chases me to the back of the room and starts attacking, starts calling me out. And, who are you to be giving coaching? What certifications do you have? And I just turned to her and said, what certifications do I have? I said, do you need proof? First of all, I don't need to prove myself to you. I don't know who the hell you are. But you see that person over there? They're my client. We took them from 6 to 7 figures. See that client over there? They're mine too. See this one? See this one? See that one? See those? Don't ask me. Ask them. And let them tell you if they thought that working with me was worth it or if they felt that I needed a degree of some sort. Otherwise, take your fancy degree and shove it up you know what. That's my New York that would come in after that and tell them where to go. Yeah. But, at the end of the day, again, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. Everybody wants to point their finger and judge. This is your journey, right? Understand the journey has the life cycle. And I know I'm being a little repetitive, but that's on purpose. As Tony Robbins would say, repetition is the mother of learning, right? And that's the truth. We hear things, but we're not really listening. I'm begging all of you on this and listening to this podcast to truly listen. Not only the wisdom coming out of me, but the wisdom coming out of the host here, Philip. There's a lot going on here. There's way more to unpack than you probably think on the surface, right? So on that note, where do you want to go with this? How much deeper do you want to go into building the business? I know we've been talking for a little while, so I'll leave that on you, Philip, on where you might want to go with this.
Yeah. No, I think this is a great place for us to stop. There's been so much great information and really it's all about us, building us up. Like we mentioned at one point, we are the bottleneck in our business, no matter where we're at, 1 year, 5 year, 10 years, 50 years in business, we are the bottleneck. And if it's not us, it's somebody like the CEO within your company, if you're at that point, or somebody else is technically running the day-to-day operations. But there's always a person that is the bottleneck. So that top person has to, or not even the top person, the person that is dealing with that certain process has to continue to develop in order for the business to continue to grow and scale.
That's right.
Develop yourself, develop your people if you want your business to continue to develop and to grow.
Now, we've both spent time in corporate America. You know, and for everybody out there, it's no wonder why we see big corporations change their CEOs, upgrade their CEOs, bring on a new CEO. Why do they do that? Well, if a CEO doesn't fit anymore, they replace him. It's called what we call trading up your team. You've got to be willing to do that. And that includes trading yourself up. If you're currently the CEO and the company's not getting where you want it to go, you have to be willing to say, you know what? Am I the problem? Can I trade me up? Can I bring in another CEO to run this company? You know, it sounds crazy, but it's not. Companies do this all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, we got to get our ego out of the way long enough.
Yep.
So that we can do what's right for the business.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, I hope this was useful.
It was, Dean. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this value with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. I totally enjoy it. Anytime we get to chat, I enjoy it.